intrusion detection of.
Sorry about that.
Sorry, Anand.
All right. So in the endpoint security, if some clients like to use a host-based intrusion detection or a prevention system, some people may run antivirus solutions. So it checks to see if those endpoint security services are current, and looks for if it's been turned off, turned on, and how many threats you see across those instances. Last but not least, port monitoring. Look for any new ports or IPs that connect to an environment. You can blacklist, whitelist according to the criticality of the applications running on that environment. So with this dashboard, what you see is all the instances. Wherever you see the check mark, it looks good. Wherever there's a next, someone has to go into it and see what the issue is. So this is sort of the high-level gist of what the Validator does. Starting with the vulnerability management, once you install the once you execute the scans across all your devices, it populates all your findings together on the dashboard, and you can do a deep dive and look into what the issues are, what are the remediation actions that you can take. So this can also be run on a periodic basis, as often as you want. We recommend that you run this at least once a quarter, and so you can see if the issues have been remediated in a timely manner or not. Any questions on the vulnerability management? And by the way, how much time do we have, Cal?
We have around 5, right? We're good till 5.
All right.
So are you on all your cloud solutions that you guys are doing? I know you guys are doing a lot of all different size accounts. Is this an overlay? Is this something new, or is this something you've been doing as an overlay on top of it?
This is something that's new for us, as we spoke about it. This is a very good complementary offering to what we're doing. So as we're deploying cloud environments, now we could throw this on and say, hey, now we have all this monitoring in place on top of what we've already done. So it's a proactive measure for us.
Has AWS, I know, on the news there was a breach, there was one notable breach, but you haven't had any breaches, right? It's just been rock solid.
Yeah, so most of the breaches that do occur, it's either social engineering or if someone does something improperly in terms of configuration and such, and that was the big breach in AWS. That was actually internal.
Internal engineer.
Yeah.
Human error.
Yeah. Right, human error.
Right, yeah.
Human error.
But nobody's, it's rock solid when you put somebody up there.
Yeah. So there are proactive measures you can take so you can restrict, accesses and allowing people to do certain things. A lot of that can be done through AWS directly.
Right.
But also, this is something like Cal mentioned, it's more of an overlay to get that single pane of glass and to be able to manage. This goes to the level of like PCI compliance. And
this is compliance-driven, regulatory environments. Okay, got it.
This is a combination of a security overlay as well as like Microsoft's version of Lighthouse.
Right.
Where they're allowing you across multiple tenants to be able to aggregate and see and manage and control, instead of having to constantly log into a tenant, log out, log back in, log back out, log back in, log back out. Okay.
A holistic view into the entire environment.
Yeah, and that's a great point, because if you look at medium to large size enterprises, you see a lot of them slowly migrating from an on-prem architecture to a hybrid, where they start to just move some servers to the cloud. But now you have 2 instances, the on-prem as well as the cloud, that you need to manage under a standardized security framework. So with our solution, you're helping those clients as well to sort of ensure that they have that standard maintained across different environments. Or you may also have a client that has some instances on AWS and other on Google, and you want to maintain a uniform standard across those environments as well. So what this does is it gives you a list of all the assets across all the cloud, all the implementations, and if there's a new asset that is being pushed into the cloud, it will show up as an unmanaged system. And for the ones that are part of the monitoring, You can go into an asset. You can view what sort of application inventory does it have, what ports is it running, what are the services on the system, who are the users or user accounts on that particular instance. So now, with all this information, if you suspect some sort of a hack, let's say, you can do data correlation across all these instances and look for if any new user accounts have been created on specific instances. So it helps you also mitigate and remediate some of the issues. But what we have here in terms of vulnerability management, configuration monitoring, patch, etc., these are sort of the attributes that cause devices to be hacked. So you might have a vulnerability that has not been patched. You might have a weak configuration setting that can be utilized by a hacker. You might have a machine sitting there that has not been patched for several months, which has a vulnerability that can be misused. Same thing with password security in users. And last but not least, suddenly you may start to see a whole bunch of ports being hit across all your instances. So the port monitoring kicks in to give you that sort of a view.
I see that the port monitoring and the configuration monitoring seem to be the most vulnerable aspect of how people can, right? Is that accurate?
You can see, I think a year ago, I was at JP Morgan Chase. They had a server without a patch, updated patch, which got hacked. So, it's hard to say which among these are the top two. We believe that each one of them is as important as the other. And you need to always have a balance across these attributes. But to your point, so configuration, NIST, which is the National Institute of Standards and Technology, they come up with baseline security configuration standards for different operating systems and databases. So you can take any known published framework and use that as a guiding principle for a secure configuration monitoring. So, if a client decides to go that route, they start off with a more secure environment as opposed to the ones where they have everything wide open and they slowly start to patch things in. So yes, so this is a very critical attribute, and oftentimes it is also used from for a computer forensic investigation. I see a new sort of a virus or a worm or a Trojan horse that is in our environment. You can run this across all your servers and see which particular configuration or new file has been added to the environment, and it helps you really nail down which server needs to be fixed. But yes, configuration monitoring is one of those things that people tend to ignore the most, which is pretty much the heart and soul of a infrastructure.
So Rob and Mitch, I don't know, maybe you guys have insight into that. How often are you seeing that as an issue from a config standpoint?
I think it's we're focused on patch management first and foremost because the configuration is kind of specific to each client. My question I was going to ask was, are the attributes customizable? Because obviously, depending on the installation and what you're looking at, it's not the same across the board. So, and I look at it as like the alerts that you get when you're doing this sort of stuff. There's informational and actionable alerts, and what we try to do is suppress a lot of the informational alerts because there's a lot of noise.
Yeah, sure.
So, does this give you the ability to tune the attributes? Okay.
And I think Anand can actually show you. I think maybe I'll go into the NIST framework, Anand, when you do.
And one other question.
Hang on, he's got one more.
One other question. So this view that we're seeing here, obviously this is a demo view.
Yeah, it's all demo.
So Aufsite is the global admin, and you can see each one of your customers, and you could also see them aggregated globally, I assume. Do your customers have the ability to log on and look at this from their pane and see only their assets and see their view, or is this not an end user?
This is exactly what it is.
Exactly
This is what the customer is going to see.
But it's like Aufsite is branded as the master.
So it's multi-tenanted.
It's multi-tenanted, exactly. But everybody's got their own silo.
But you're the global admin.
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
Remember,
Okay.
this is a SaaS product. Right? And let's let Anand, if you want to go ahead and explain that, and then go into the.
Yeah, great question. So yeah, to your point, this is right now I'm logged in as a customer admin, so I only get to see my assets in this environment. And going back to the configuration of how do we fine tune certain rules to minimize false positives and reduce the noise. So this is the secure configuration screen. And here, if you see, there is a whole bunch of expected values, which is what, to your point, every customer may decide to have their own set of rules that need to be customized. So we can go into the system and enable or implement this for their security standards or their security policy. So whenever there is an issue where a config doesn't meet their policy, which is a actual within a server, doesn't meet that, it's going to raise a flag. So as an example here, it says do not let anonymous enumeration of spam accounts and shares. The expected value as per NIST standard is it needs to be enabled, but on this particular instance, that has been disabled. So what it means is now we raise a flag. So we can fine tune the false positives so that there is less sound or less, false positives in their environment. As an example, you see 47 alerts right now. When we created this day one, we probably had close to 2,500 plus alerts. So we've been fine tuning this environment too. Again, this is our demo environment to bring down the number of alerts to a small manageable number.
One of the things to keep in mind is out of the box, you see what you see and the standards are put into place, right? Going against, let's say, NIST. But with the services that go around it, if there's certain areas that you want to concentrate on, say, hey, these are the rules that we have in place that we need to implement, that's also something that we can bring into the mix.
So that was my question was going to be, where are all the variables coming from? What sources are the variables coming from for each category?
The variables would be from the ITAM, from the device discovery.
Talking about like the NIST framework, for example.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So he's going to go into where we can actually set up the rules for the NIST framework.
So, but different organizations are going to have like, so for PCI, you're going to have maybe something for PCI. You're going to have HIPAA high tech. You're going to have something for HIPAA high tech.
Yep.
But NIST is the core foundation,
right.
And then whatever the foundation NIST framework looks like is what's you're working with, and you can modify it based on particular industry.
Right? So all of the different modules or capabilities that you have within NIST,
So
you can apply some of them to meet certain compliance requirements. So yeah.
So when you have NIST as the foundation framework, and let's say you're in an industry, let's say you're in financial services, and you need PCI to sit on top of that, is there a PCI template that overlays that you pull in, or do you have to go in and kind of like customize it to be?
You customize it.
Okay.
Yeah. So we can go in there and maybe Anand can explain it more in detail, but we go in there and take every requirement that you have PCI. Hey, listen, there's certain things that you can do through configuration, and that's what's done through here. When you have PCI, I mean, it's fairly huge, and there's a lot of other things in terms of trainings, and then of course you have like network segmentation and actual architecture of your environment. Obviously you can't manage that through a software like this. That has to be done physically for that environment.
Right.
But this is the reporting engine.
Yeah.
Right.
So there are a couple of things, right? So one is a PCI or a HIPAA standard typically has, I would, break it down into three categories. You got the administrative safeguards, then you got the, let's say administrative safeguards and technical safeguards. So one is more process oriented. Do you have a process to, add new users to a system? Do you have a process for change management? Those would be the administrative safeguards. On the technical safeguards, the controls would be, do you perform frequent vulnerability scanning? Do you do secure configuration monitoring? Do you perform patches on a real-time basis or in a timely manner? So what you see here in the top, the 6 attributes that we look at are part of HIPAA, a part of PCI, or any other standardized framework out there. What you don't see in this dashboard are more the process-related controls, or there might be a control that says you need to have all your credit card numbers encrypted in a database, which is a PCI requirement. Those are separate out of this. So what we're doing here is ensuring that the infrastructure you have to manage your day-to-day operations has technical safeguards implemented. And this dashboard gives you the view of the technical safeguards. Anything outside of this is more a process, or it might be a database system, which has to be taken care of separately. But from a reporting standpoint, we can create customized report for, let's say, if you have clients that are PCI focused, we can create a report from this to say, you know what, these 6 attributes will, contribute towards PCI, and we can generate a report to show what controls within the system apply to the PCI standards. But that needs to be, we need to customize those into our report.
All these, like, what is see where it says name, what is everyone a different server or something?
It's a machine.
Everyone's a machine.
Everyone's a different machine.
Okay.
So you can see that it's go ahead. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, in the cloud, what happens is you can turn on instances. You can have like 1,000 servers go on within the next minute with a single click of a button, right? And what happens is, because you can roll out instances so fast, if you don't have these proactive or preventative security controls in place, it becomes very hard to manage the environment or the security of an environment. So what we believe is these are the core standards that one needs to have when you go onto the cloud and monitor for these key attributes to maintain a better, secure environment. So again,
dashboard actually kind of highlights a lot of that. We're saying, hey, these are the areas that you should focus on, because this is what we're seeing as vulnerabilities or patch management issues or whatever it may be.
So this shows you a report of, yeah, sorry.
So those 6 categories that you have here on this dashboard here, and you mentioned, like, in terms of identifying vulnerabilities, are each of those 6 categories constantly being updated with maybe, with different, with new potential threats? And how often does that happen in those 6 categories?
Yeah. The frequency is something that we can come up with as far as what we want, right? Again, every time you do an update, it costs money. So that's the only thing where we have to work out. But right now, what do we have set as the frequency on this, Anand, for the update?
It happens, I think, every 10 minutes. It's configurable. So at this point, we set it up for, no, actually, I take it back. It's set for every 12 hours right now. We had it for 10 minutes, but, we were using a lot of our dev resources from the AWS perspective. So we just find
the point behind that is tasking, right? To do it either every 10 minutes or every 12 hours or every 24 hours or every week. So it depends on what you need. If you need real-time updating, what's that? Yeah. But again, it's going to be tasking on the actual product for us to be able to.
How many you charge? How many devices and how often?
Devices, yeah. And then the how often would be something that we'd have to take off onto the side.
Yeah. But your question about emerging threats, right?
This, and this is a tool that they don't have.
They don't have it. They don't have it. So like, you know, there's, you may have heard of Alien Vault. It's now under the AT&T umbrella. This is very similar to that, where it's giving you that holistic view to, you know, have a preventative solution so that you're protected in multiple different respects of your environment.
Pretty cool. I've never seen anything like it.
Yeah. And so that's one of the things when we're talking to Anant and the team on building. So the reason why he's demoing is because he was the PM that helped us get this built, right? And specifically for us to be able to go and do this cloud solution overlay or complementary solution. And, you know, for us, there's nothing like that on the market. Well, there is, but there's not more than a handful of solutions. So, you know, to be able to go in and the other portion of that is that when you have a product, it's so much more of an easier lead in to a conversation rather than services.
You can sell this by itself.
Exactly.
You don't have to.
Exactly.
You don't have to
Tangible
sell
product
them
that
your
you can
cloud workspace solution. You can go in. This could be the start.
See, I see where in larger environments where
Oh, for sure.
this is
Oh, yeah.
value add because
Oh, yeah.
it becomes difficult to manage manually.
Oh,
So
a large environment?
So from a polling
Oh.
interval standpoint, I know your updates are set to do like every 12 hours. Is that what I?
For right now, yeah.
What does the polling look like? Because, you know, traditional managed services in the cloud is tough because, you know, machines are spun up and spun down and you have these periods where they're dark, right? Your storage and all the other stuff, your you know, VPNs, all that stuff's nailed up, you know, right? 24/7, but machines can go up and down. From a polling interval standpoint, how often is this polling and how much traffic does that create? That's the first two questions. And then is there a database that you can run reports against? And if so, what is the period of time that you can go back? Because a lot of compliance-driven businesses want to see reports and things like that.
Yeah, go ahead, Anant.
Yeah, so in terms of the data that we poll I mean, like I said, I would ideally like to say that I would probably set it for once an hour, every hour to. But in terms of data that it pulls, it is probably less than 100 MB, 100 MB in a environment with about, you know, less than almost 1 MB per instance. And I can get you more accurate statistics on it, but you know, we've done a lot of testing. So the good thing about the tool is it is only reporting back on the deltas, right? So if your environment is sort of unchanged and the configs continue to stay the same, in all likelihood, the amount of data that it reports back is very minimal. The only time you'll see an increase amount, usage would be when we import a scan result into the platform. It takes about 6 to 8 hours for the backend to churn all that data and make it, you know, in a simplified format like this. That is where we tend to spend a lot of time gathering it. You know, but again, that is not done at the client side. That is more, that's a performance hit that we take in the data processing on our end. The client is not going to know anything. None of those machines, you know, the CPU utilization in this barely goes up to 4% in the worst case scenario. So if that answers your question.
Yes, it does. And then from a retention standpoint, how much historical data do you retain?
That would be the client, you know, it's client driven. So the client says, you know, we want this to be archived every month. We would do that. But right now, it's all client configurable.
Okay.
We don't define that policy yet.
Do you have a pricing calculator that shows?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
You want to whip up a little pricing?
We can. The pricing that I have right now is our internal pricing, so I'll have to send it to you, Paul, if that's okay.
Yeah, I mean, you have to send it to me. I'm just curious, like, how does it, like, 25 servers, what's that look like? You know, I'm just curious.
So it's broken down by module, right? So if you go with the full module, the Cloud Validator package, let's just say, right? That would be anywhere from, you know, $38 to $45 per device.
It's monthly recurring. Right.
Per device.
Okay.
So like when you engage with someone to get this set up, and then obviously if they want parts and pieces, you have pricing for that as well. So it's either a la carte or you're buying.
Exactly. So that's why I said, like, right now we only have our internal, but I can
fine.
put your pricing together and send that to you as a PDF.
And then is it, like, to get it set up, is it a project? Is there a baseline? Like, because I would assume that, in an environment that hasn't been well managed, you roll something like this out, and you're gonna have like red lights all over the place. And then, like, obviously in most clients, either don't have the skill to fix it or don't have the time to fix it.
A whole
One or the other.
remediation phase project.
So is there a price to roll it out one time and then there's a remediation policy that you put in effect if you're gonna do the remediation to help if they need it? How does that work?
So there's a couple of ways, right? So one, you have the product itself, you have the per device fee. It comes with a little bit of the services to get you set up from an implementation standpoint. Full support. So once it's implemented and everything's up and running, you get full support, right?
Sure.
You call the numbers, we take care of the support aspect. Outside of that anything would be more of a customized level. So if we sit down and we have, a couple of hours workshop and say, these are all the things, like, so we want to get into PCI, we want to get into high trust, we want to get into all these different HIPAA and all these other standards that we want to look into. That's going to be a little bit more of a customization effort that goes into the consulting services around it.
Sure.
So we're trying to provide a one-stop shop when it comes to this. Does that answer your question, Ron?
Yeah, I think it's interesting that the way you guys have set this tool up. It's a recurring cost, right? But it's really the assessment that drives the remediation and ultimately.
Exactly.
I mean, it's a beautiful thing because it's not a one-time or for free. It's a recurring revenue stream where you're making money on the assessment phase, and then it's really nice. And then
Security system for you.
and then as it continues to go from healthy to red, there's more remediation along the way, and the company might just get comfortable with outsourcing that to you. As opposed to, especially a smaller business.
Well, I think
So it just drives opportunity all the time.
Yeah, and it's difficult to go back to your question, to actually go in and remediate the problems because we don't know what to expect. Like you said, every client is different. You can go into a client and recognize that there's 1,000,001 problems versus 10 or 20 of them. And so the way we try to keep the same process in terms of how we work our sales organization right now. So we actually like to deal with individuals or companies on a one-to-one basis, understand what their problems are, and we come up with whatever SOW is required at that point, and then work towards that solution. So we haven't gone into standardizing that in the back end and saying, hey, listen, if you have 20 servers and you have 50 different problems, this is how much it's going to cost you.
You have to assess that one by one.
We have to go through the assessment process and then figure that out.
I mean, I think it's a nice fit for us because, we have cloud workspace clients. They don't have this. This is an overlay. This is our strategic partner.
So what is the you're not reselling this. You're going in direct on these and providing this service. So, okay. All right.
So is it a we bring you in? Is it a referral commission? I mean, what do you?
So we'd have to work that out, right?
You haven't figured that.
We'd have to work that out. We
have
have
to go to market's being worked out.
It's not like we are branding it Ancero on the dashboard.
No.
It's an offsite.
It would be an offsite product that would allow you to go ahead and come under that umbrella
and
to have that true multi-tenant.
This is our first demo. You're our first.
I got it. I mean, would it be considered offsite powered by Ancero because we're bringing you to our clients? I mean, I don't know.
We could work with that.
You could think about something like that. I mean, it's very interesting.
We could work with that.
Very, very interesting.
Okay.
I think it's I can think of a couple clients. A couple really big ones.
And we haven't even gone into
it would be very. I think it's a nominal charge, $45 a server. I mean, I think it's really reasonable.
Okay.
I mean, I don't know.
So there's I think a couple more modules that we wanted not to go through, and then.
I think that what you were doing before with the reporting stuff is pretty important.
mentioned reports also, so if you want to go towards that direction as well.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. So quickly, patch management on each of the devices is going to show what are the criticals through, moderate to low that are missing, and you can click onto it to understand exactly what's the KB number of that server, that patch, so that you can have the administrators go ahead and patch the system. I think I showed you the vulnerability management piece. What is great about this is today a lot of the vulnerability management, service. How do I say that? This is usually offered as a service these days, and what we've done is rather than have a consulting service, we've integrated the tool and the reporting is into the dashboard, so it makes it really simple. And organizations really don't need to have an expert come in to run the scans anymore. And again, this is all on demand. We recommend that clients run this at least once a quarter to see, how they're doing overall in terms of their patching of systems. Secure configuration, we went through this. Again, we can customize the reports for this. What you see on the screen is these are the different domains that we monitor for a secure configuration. It's got network parameters, operating system configuration, services, encryption, patches, etc. And then the last piece is the port monitoring piece, where it shows what ports are running, how many instances are using that port. And again, if you see a new port showing up, it will show up in this report. So you can flag that, and someone can go in to see why that particular port has opened up. So it makes the security incident management a lot more proactive. So this is sort of the gist of what we do. Any questions so far?
Does this sit up in AWS? Is that where this sits?
Yeah, right now what you see is all AWS. Yeah.
Okay. So virtual machines come in different flavors. There's servers, and then there's like VDI virtual desktops. This applies to both servers and desktops, and the pricing is the same regardless of the machine type.
No, it's not, and that's why I said I'm gonna have to send you the price list, because the thing is that we break it down by package. So then we have also things like the Validator Plus, which gives you the remediation capabilities as well on top of what we do from an assessment standpoint. So let me send you that price list, and then we can figure out how we want to approach this and maneuver it and work out the details around it.
Okay. So this isn't actually doing patching. It's just looking at.
This is looking, but we can do the patching.
So yeah, eventually we want to be able to push patches through the application itself.
So is this system just looking back at Microsoft's typical patch schedule?
Maybe articles.
Okay.
Exactly.
And then from the port monitoring standpoint, is it actually doing like almost like a Nessus scan? Or?
It's a network scan. Yeah. So it'll check for open ports.
And also, we didn't show the whitelisting and stuff like that. Maybe, Anat, do you want to go through the whitelisting of the ports just to get an idea?
Yeah, I mean, it's not, from a demo standpoint, I don't think it adds much value. But typically, you would go in, you can pick your port, determine what IP address do you want to, have that port open to, and you can submit that. And the backend, it'll just go and open up the port or block the port, depending on what action you want to take. So, I think your earlier question, I think you brought up the Nessus scan. That's typically what you see in the vulnerability management module. Is basically it runs a scan across all your infrastructure, and it imports the results, and we categorize it into critical, high, medium, and low. So this is more a Nessus scan-like thingy, but from a port monitoring, it's looking for active ports. If it's the AWS environment, we have an API that goes into the AWS monitoring platform and pulls out that data. So this is more AWS specific, and this is more Nessus specific.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
One of the other things, Anand, can you go to, was it under vulnerability management?
Yep.
Yep. Go down a little bit for me. Actually, it might have been under ITAM. Yeah, so here, a lot of the times what you see on the right side is kind of just a history of what's going on. Sometimes when you have issues and problems, you want them to be actionable. So like if you click on that, Anand, one of those. So basically what this allows you to do at this point is you found that there is an issue and you want to take action on it. So you actually have the ability to put a priority and open a ticket. Say, hey, listen, there's a problem, guys. We need to make sure it's resolved. So you open a ticket, your ability on top of it and resolve the problems as well. So I think that's a very neat feature.
One of the things that is not on here, guys, and because you guys are such a big O365 shop, is the module that we're going to be adding in for O365 security. And Anand could talk a little bit more about that, so you guys get a little bit more detail. We can, see if we can put that on the price list, but it's still early. Anand, do you want to just talk a little bit about the O365 security module?
Yeah, sure. We call it the behavioral analytics tool. What it does is basically it monitors your Office 365 environment to see if files have been, accessed, modified, deleted, and you can monitor that against a threshold. So if you have an employee within an organization that's being let go, you suddenly see that there is you could see a trend where the person tends to download a whole bunch of documents. That way, you know that they're trying to, take home some of the sensitive information of the organization. The other thing that we do is we look for access points. So let's say, I'm New Jersey based, and most of the times I access my Office 365 from either New York City or New Jersey. But on one fine day, I see that, there's a new zone from where someone is accessing my account. It could be, let's say, Russia as an example. So suddenly you'd see Anand signing in or trying to sign in from a different geographical location where, technically the system doesn't know if I'm traveling or if I'm, if somebody else is trying to access my account. So it looks for, sort of a profile. It profiles the access activity as well as the file access activity. So
we had team go to the camera. Too soon?
I missed that, Cal, but
no, it's too soon.
Is there logging capabilities in here to see who's made changes along the way as well?
Absolutely. Great question. If you go, give me 1 second. Audit trail at the top. There we go. So typically here it's going to show who modified the rules and when. Unfortunately, I don't have data showing for that here. But yeah, it's going to show you.
Right. Well, we also had a bunch of changes that we made recently on the layout. That's why I was fumbling around trying to, because the development team had to make some changes on where we wanted some things positioned and stuff like that. So that's why. But yeah, this is a demo environment. As we, get to a point where we can actually show, if you want to see it, we can definitely do that.
Do you have any clients on it currently?
One small one, very small one. Yeah. Very small one. That's more for our management rather than them, honestly. We're talking to a little bit bigger of a client. You know, you're talking about thousands of users and thousands of servers, but that's going to be, you know, how these long sales cycles go with those guys, man. So we're starting the conversation, but let's see where it goes.
I would think cybersecurity companies who, you know, could really leverage this tool would be.
Totally for Kevin, wanted to be a part of this, and I totally forgot to loop him in. I think we definitely need to.
Yeah, I mean, I could see where Kevin would have interest for sure.
Yeah.
If they don't have anything like this, I don't know. I mean,
they're all about the consulting services, right?
Yeah.
So I don't think that they have any product. Because when we were talking to them at the golf event at Topgolf,
I brought that up to him, so he
didn't have any product.
He doesn't have anything.
I mean, they've built their whole model now kind of on recurring revenue. They are consulting, but it's that 360.
That's exactly what that's the model that we're trying to go after, man, is that recurring. Makes it much more easy from a valuation standpoint.
It's unique. I mean, you know, it switches really, that's good.
Yeah. I had my 1Password, which is my password management tool. I paid 2 years ago, $45 for it, and I've been using it ever since. I went there to see if they had any updates, and now even they've gone.
Months up at the sub.
You know, so, you know, Adobe, all these other companies.
Everybody wants a little piece of the pie.
Yeah, but then you look at Microsoft, right? They started off the whole block, right? I mean, they were doing it on a license basis, and you got it, and then now it's all sub based. It's all sub based.
That's what they want.
And depending on what you're doing, it's like, you know, here's the list of licensing you need.
Right, exactly.
Microsoft, you gotta love them. But yeah, so this is it, guys, and I think we can, you know, further continue the conversation. I mean, we listen. It's a